Hey guys, my name is Gil. I'm the owner of this 1984 Piper Malibu. It's one of the early ones, so it has the Continental engine. I flew down here from New Jersey to show Mike the airplane. I know he wanted to do a review on one, and here it is. Made it down here in about an hour and 40 minutes with a little bit of a headwind, nonstop. And we'll get right into some of the specs of the airplane. I'm 49 years old, and I'm actually a nurse practitioner, but that's what I do for a living. But I fly for fun. I fly for passion. I started flying later in life, only about 4 years ago. I was in my mid-40s and got my private, instrument, commercial, multi, bunch of endorsements, tailwheel, etc. Started out with Cherokee in terms of school, but then I very quickly graduated into my first airplane, which was a Mooney M20J, a 1990 MSC. Put about 500 hours in that airplane, all VFR, because I spent about the first 2 years without an instrument rating. And then I went and got my instrument in commercial and so forth. And I took that complex rating and I said, I want to go higher and faster. So the next progression that was recommended to me was a Piper Malibu, because they're pressurized. They're very efficient. I think when you look at the miles per gallon, if you get a Continental Malibu, they're probably the most efficient airplanes in general aviation. And my mission was primarily New Jersey to Florida, and I would do that quite often, both for pleasure as well as for investment purposes. I would go and scout real estate. And in doing that, the Mooney, which I loved, absolutely loved that airplane, started to get very tiresome because I would have a full day of commuting down, do what I had to do, and then a full day planning to come back, because first of all, you have to land for fuel, and then secondly, being non-pressurized between 8,000 and 12,000 feet, you're mildly hypoxic throughout the entire trip. So you're exhausted when you get there, and the day's kind of done by the time you're landing. I knew I wanted a plane that I could get in the morning, have lunch at my destination, still make use of the day, and if I was flying back the next day or 2 days later, I wasn't fully exhausted when I got back. I have some useful load, about 1,400 pounds in this specific model. This one has the Continental 550 upgrade, which is an STC, along with the Hartzell 3-blade propeller. And, it originally was a P310, but it was upgraded to a 350 horsepower with this STC. I have the extended range tanks that give me 140 gallons. And lean of peak, which is what the Continental with the Gammies likes to do, at altitude in the flight levels, I'm burning between 14 and 14 and a half gallons per hour with a true airspeed of 200 knots. So if you consider the endurance with IFR reserves, I think it's something like 7 hours. You could really cover about 1,500 nautical miles. Of course, if your bladder allowed you to do that. I don't. I usually like to land in North Carolina, get some coffee, stretch my legs, and then continue onwards. But if I have a tailwind, I've seen ground speeds upwards of 270, 280 knots. I'll just stay up in the flight levels, and I've been direct Florida to New Jersey in as little as 3 to 3.5 hours. For somebody considering something like this, I would highly recommend that you get a complex endorsement and something a little slower and a little simpler. So for me, the Mooney fit that bill. There's a lot of retracts out there. For example, you can get a Piper Arrow. There are older Moonies, so a lot of these airplanes are very affordable, relatively speaking, right? Because aviation, affordability is subjective, but you can get yourself a retract, build up some time, because insurance really likes retract time when you move into a fast, complex airplane. So if you have absolutely no retract time or no complex endorsement at all, and you go into one of these, you may have a little bit of a hard time with insurance, both in terms of finding a company to cover you as well as the cost associated. So having a few hundred hours in a retract certainly going to help you. So that's step one. Step two, when you go into an airplane like this, what my instructor called the entry level of big boy airplanes, he said you have to do an initial and then you have to do a recurrent every year. So if you're a private pilot with a land single engine airplane rating, you can go and fly a 172 or a Cherokee 180, etc. You still cannot fly this insurability wise. From the FAA standpoint, yes, you could get in. It's a single engine piston. From an insurance standpoint, they require specific things. So the first thing they require in it is what's called an initial. And I went to a company named Archer, and I had an instructor named Nicholas Thayer out of Wisconsin, who I spent about 4 days with doing ground school and about 20 something hours in the airplane. And he knows this airplane inside and out. And that's all he does is he teaches in Malibus and TBMs. And we spent 4 days together flying the airplane. And once he felt confident in signing me off, he gave me a certificate to present to the insurance company. That insurance company also requires that every single year on the anniversary month of my initial, I go back and do a 1-day recurrent with an instructor like him who is proficient in this airplane, and then they give you another certificate to submit. That recurrent also includes an IPC, so even if you're instrument current, you do need to do an IPC. Insurance obviously being a big factor. You want to ensure that you're doing your initial training correctly with a company that is certified by the insurance company to accept the certificate. My first year insurance on this airplane, I want to say was around $13,000. Now this happens to be one of the lower hull values for a Malibu, being a first year airplane. I have it insured for $500,000, which is around the entry level point for a good solid Malibu with a nice glass panel, good low time engine, etc. I've seen a couple, priced lower. I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend buying those, but Malibus today, M350 and a piston model, they're close to $2 million. So anything between 500 and about 1.8 million is the full range on them. You'll find most of the pre-owned Malibus fall between 500 and a million. So $500,000 whole value. I had a first year premium of $13,000 with 0 hours in type, but 500 or so hours in retract. I was a newly minted IFR pilot, and I was newly minted in commercial because I did my IFR specifically when I got in contract on this airplane, knowing that I'm going to take delivery, and you can't fly in the flight levels or class alpha without your instrument rating. And I already said I've been flying for 2 years, a lot of hours, VFR. I'm tired of canceling plans or heading to Florida, seeing clouds and having to turn around. I said, all right, enough's enough. I'm buying a capable plane, I got my instrument. So new IFR, new commercial, first year, 0 time and type, 13,000. Fast forward a year later, when I did my recurrent training, I had about 450 to 500 hours in this airplane. And I know what you're thinking, yes, I fly a lot. That is a lot of flying for one airplane in 1 year. And mind you, I still had my Mooney, and in that time I also bought a carbon cub. So now I'm splitting time amongst 3 airplanes, and yet I still put over 400 hours on this airplane because this is my travel plane. Insurance on the second year was a lot more favorable. It was just shy of $8,000. It was around $7,800. So it got cut down by a significant margin, right? Not quite by half, but close. I think in year 3, which I'm coming up in a couple of months here in August, I think my renewal on this is probably going to fall in the low 7s, and I think that's really where it's going to end up being. So that's your rough idea for insurance cost. I run a medical company. I'm a CEO of a medical company, which I happen to own, and it's hard to say I have a lot of free time because voluntarily I could make free time, but anyone that runs a business knows that if you're absent, your business suffers. So I make sure that I'm in my office generally Monday through Thursday, almost religiously. I like to take Fridays to Sundays to myself, especially when we have flying weather. And if I'm not sleeping or working, I'm usually in an airplane. So to me, aviation is about passion. I never want to mix business with aviation because I don't want to create stress around it. It's a stress reliever. So I get to spend money on aviation, make money in my business. A lot of friends who are in the aviation business have said, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And again, the minute you start to intertwine, that passion starts to suffer. So I like to keep aviation fun. Yes, I travel for business purposes. I have offices in different states. I go to Florida, as I mentioned, a lot. And I will use aviation for that. But it is never really something that I wanted to turn into a business or a charter or anything of that sort. So I do have a little bit of free time to enjoy it. I do tend to fly a lot. I'll make these trips in this airplane, 3, 4, 5 hour legs. You count that back and forth. That could be a 10-hour weekend. And then on a nice day, if I'm local, I'll jump in a carbon cub and go hit some grass strips and do 5, 6 hours in that, literally in one day, just for fun. So when I was looking for a cross-country pressurized airplane that's air-conditioned, the Malibu kept coming up over and over. And the biggest concern I had speaking to a few Malibu owners, not knowing anything about the brand or model, was they all said, well, the range and the useful load are terrible. So if you need to get a couple of people from Jersey to Florida, you're either going to take people or you're going to take fuel. and you're gonna have to land at some point. You're not gonna go nonstop. And remember, the Mooney had the same issue. So I said, I'm gonna get air conditioning and pressurization, but I'm still gonna have to land, so it's not gonna save me a whole lot of time. Every M350 guy or Malibu guy that I spoke to, or Malibu Mirage guy I spoke to, would tell me we cannot go nonstop from New York, New Jersey area down to Florida. Then I spoke to a friend who's a broker, and he said, have you looked at the 84 to 86 Malibus? I said, no. He said, okay. The downside is they use the Garcanyon gear system, which is no longer available. So if you have an issue with the gear, you got to have the actuators resealed. It's hard to get parts. He said, but hear me out. The upside is they used Continental engines for a couple of years, and they burn almost half the fuel of the modern day Mirage. So now, even if you have to take less fuel because of useful load, you can go so much further. So I started to look around and ask owners of 84 to 86 Malibus, and I found out that the guy who owned this airplane before me lived in Indiana, and he used to fly to Florida nonstop all the time with his brother. So looking at it, burning 14 to 14 and a half gallons an hour up in the flight levels, even if I only took, I remember one trip from New Jersey, I had 4 people in the airplane on the way to Florida, and I only needed about 70 gallons to complete the whole trip. So you really can't beat it for efficiency. If your mission is 1,000 nautical miles or less, and you want comfort, you want pressurization, you want air conditioning, you want decent speed, and I say decent, again, it's subjective, 200 knots true. For me, it's decent. I've been flying it for a while. I'm actually looking for a TBM now actively so I can go faster. To a lot of guys, if you're coming out of a smaller GA airplane, 200 knots may sound great like it did to me a couple years back when I bought the airplane. So if you want to go 200, you want to burn similar fuel burn to what, let's say, a Saratoga would burn, but go significantly faster. You get a cabin class interior for your passengers, recliners. I fly my daughter sometimes. She's starting college out of state. I'm flying her down a lot, and she likes to fall asleep in the back. I have Starlink in the airplane, so I have full Wi-Fi. And it's great. I mean, you know, I have nothing bad to say about this airplane. If it's in your budget and your mission calls for 1,000 nautical mile airplane, you could throw a couple of friends in, bags for the weekend, and go for minimal cost of operation and ownership. Even my annuals, I think my last annual was about $6,500. So if you don't defer maintenance and you keep the airplane in good shape, 6 to 7 grand on an annual for a plane of this caliber with a twin turbo engine, I think is really the sweet spot of aviation that not a lot of people know a lot about. If you're a younger pilot and you really haven't experienced a lot yet in aviation, and you're thinking of maybe buying your first airplane, and you're looking at, you know, pre-owned Cherokees or 172s, you're looking to keep the budget down, the best advice I can give you is, once you ensure that the airplane you're looking at is safe and airworthy and good, just buy it. Just buy it. There is no making sense of aviation financially. When you try to crunch the numbers, it's never going to come to a position where you say it makes sense. You can't put a dollar figure on smiles. Instead of miles per gallon, I look at dollars for smiles. It's like, what is the sense of flying yourself? What is the sense of accomplishment? The convenience of jumping in the morning and then being across the country for lunch, or taking your friends out for dinner somewhere and then coming back, you know, home. It's just buy it, just go out and do it, and you will figure it out. Things will fall into place. Just keep a positive mentality. I started out with a budget of about $75,000 looking for a Mooney. It was middle of COVID, all the plane prices were going through the roof. I was frustrated. 3 deals fell apart because people outbid me. I literally doubled my budget to $150 reluctantly, and I ended up with a great airplane that served me for 3 years and 600-700 hours. From there I went into this, I went into the Cub. I mean, it's addicting, but just go out. As long as you can afford to, you know, keep the airplane, just buy it. Don't think about it. I see on these groups all the time guys saying, do I buy, do I rent, do I split? Doesn't matter. Find a buddy who wants to fly, split the plane with him. You'll figure it out later. Life's too short to just what if it. Just do it. I mean, Mike's a perfect example of someone who literally just took a passion and made it his career. And whether you want to be in aviation for a career or not, just get a plane, just get up in the air, just put some hours in it. Confidence will come, things will start flowing. And I'll tell you what the best part for me, which was unexpected, the best part for me in aviation, as far as the community, is the networking. The people I've met in aviation are not only some of the best, most sincere people out there, I've actually done a lot of business with people I've met at FBOs or at fly-ins or at barbecues, because very, very small percentage of the population have a passion like this in common. So automatically when you go somewhere and you connect with other pilots, you have a common thing to talk about. And you end up becoming friends with a lot of these guys, and it just translates into more good things that happen. You surround yourself with 3 or 5 people that are exactly where you want to be, and your network becomes your net worth. So just buy a plane, get up there, and just enjoy.